The truth has come out as to why Lamar Jackson missed some practice time this week, and it's a familiar story. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this Saturday bonus edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And of course, you're on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are the #1 sports podcast network. Again, appreciate everybody, whether you're an everyday or a first-time listener, or if you're somewhere in the middle. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, we have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here on Locked On Ravens. Wasn't expecting to do this bonus episode today, but then we got some juicy details on Lamar Jackson's injury situation. John Harbaugh revealed some pretty interesting info about the Ravens and how they could approach the rest of the season and the offseason. So we'll dive into that. And we'll just do some Ravens and Steelers talk as well, because I think that's important with this game being a playoff game, according to, I'm sure everybody in the organization will tell you that, but that's been what's been thrown around here by the Ravens. Want to tell everyone, to remind everyone, today's bonus episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, well, we know Lamar Jackson, he's been banged up and dealing with this situation for a lot of the season. You know, he had the hamstring, and, all different parts of his leg have been not healthy over the course of this year. And he's been on the injury report practically over the last month with a different injury every single week. And this week he went back to ankle, but he practiced on Wednesday, but then didn't practice on Thursday, which is really weird. And he also was scheduled for media availability on Wednesday, but the team said that he was not going to be available. And then that Thursday missed practice kind of got everybody like, oh, okay, what's happening here? Now, Lamar did return to practice on Friday, and that's good. He's cleared everything. Everything's good there. But we did get some news, Ian Rapoport being the first to talk about this, I saw at least. And then obviously it was confirmed by Lamar Jackson himself yesterday. Lamar got his foot stepped on in practice again. This is not the first time. If you remember, you're like, wait, that sounds familiar. It's because it is. He got stepped on in practice during training camp too. And I don't know what it is. And he did not name who actually did it. He didn't want to reveal that. He said that he confirmed that he did get stepped on Wednesday's practice. And then he was asked, do you want to share who stepped on you? And he said, no, that's supposed to stay on our side. Why would I want to tell? That's crazy. So I know a lot of people are speculating, a lot of different people. Truth is, we don't know who it was. So I'm not going to speculate if it was an offensive lineman or a defender. I mean, it could literally be anybody on the roster. So we're not going to get that information, but it just feels like with all of this Lamar Jackson injury stuff, there's been a lot that just we don't know. Like, we understand the injuries he's on the injury report with every single week, but, what are those injuries? Did he sprain his foot? Did he, stub a toe? Like for the ankle, is it a sprain? Like we don't know the specifics of everything. We just know that, he's kind of banged up. And Lamar, he talked a little bit more about, his situation, and did say that he's feeling good and, had a good practice on Friday, which is great. But, he said it's more frustrating in the moment to get injured during practice, but you have to put that aside and lock in for when you're out there, which again, I get it. I mean, imagine you're working your way back from injuries, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, someone steps on you and you get hurt again. And you're like, come on, man, I was just working back from this stuff. Or he's trying to get as healthy as possible. So at least we know what happened, because the big indicator for me was going to be Friday's practice, which again was good. He's good to go. Literally, John Harbaugh gave one word for an answer. He's all set to go for Sunday. Yes, and there was a lot of other good Ravens injury news as well. Nate Wiggins is cleared. He's ready to go as well. But the concern with Lamar, obviously, he and the offense have not played well over these last 3 games, all things considered. Obviously, they're coming off a terrible performance in Cincinnati for all different kinds of reasons. And while I do personally believe that Lamar looked better in the Bengals game injury-wise than he did in the Jets game, as I've said all week, the Jets game really to me felt like he was getting up really sore on certain plays and kind of moving a little slower and maybe favoring some stuff. Or in that Bengals game, I thought he had juice, at least more than we saw in that Jets game. So hopefully that trend continues here against the Steelers. Hopefully that rest that they had during the mini bye will help them out. But the thing people are talking about is, okay, but how much are these injuries going to continue based on how severe they are? Because again, we don't know how severe they are. How much is that going to continue to hinder Lamar Jackson over the remainder of the season? And with the importance of this game coming up, Pittsburgh defense is not playing particularly well. This is another opportunity, like we said last week against the Bengals, for them to bounce back against the Steelers aren't as bad as the Bengals defense has been playing better over the last handful of weeks, but still, they're on pace to be an all-time historic bad defense. Pittsburgh's defense is nowhere near what they were over the last handful of seasons. They're more of a middling to poor unit than they were, but that hopefully can be a defense the Ravens can get going against offensively. But, Lamar is, for any quarterback, their legs are important, even if you're not really a runner. Lamar, obviously, he's a dual threat guy. And, when you are a dual threat quarterback, the threat of your arm and the threat of your legs, like right now, the teams that they're playing, I continued to go back to the example of Rashid Ali in that game against Cincinnati where they ran an option. Lamar runs it, he runs to the outside and Ali, goes up the middle and everybody follows Ali and not Lamar. And that's crazy. Like every team tries to throw some guys out there to respect Lamar Jackson, even when he doesn't have the football, because you don't want that threat. So I think teams aren't as worried or maybe not worried at all about Lamar Jackson's legs. And you just can't have that, because that one thing can take a guy away from a certain play, and that can literally be the difference. And, every little thing that an offense can do to keep a defense off balance is a little part that a defense has to worry about and has to at least have in the back of their mind. And when you eliminate that, or you're not able to do that effectively, it lets the defense off the hook. So, I'm really hoping Lamar, of course, feeling as good as he possibly can at this point. I know this is now the mini bye is done. Like this is the stretch run, hopefully getting into the postseason, hopefully going on a long run. But obviously they have a lot of things to figure out. And it's just tough because Lamar is going to continue to get hit probably over the course of the rest of this season for Baltimore, because there's not an offensive line fix. And let me tell you, I've never been hit by Myles Garrett personally or Ed Oliver or whoever, but it probably doesn't feel good to get tackled to the ground on all these plays and get hit like he has at certain points this season. And that severely has impacted him in terms of that. Now, again, he has to play better in certain instances, and I'm not letting him off the hook for any of that stuff. But of course, the injuries, the O-line drops, everything adds context to his performance. But there are also some throws he's flat out missed. And whether it is because, I don't know, he can't step into a throw, or I don't even really think we know if it's like his left foot or his right foot or his left. Like I legitimately, if we do know, I haven't seen it, but there's just so little known about this situation outside they're putting him on the injury report every week with something different. Seems like something pops up. And so, it's not good to hear he was stepped on in practice, but at least we know what happened. Like, at least we know what's going on here now. And at least for that specific instance, but we still don't really necessarily know how injured or not injured or what he's dealing with. And again, the Ravens, their mindset is probably like they gain no statistical advantage or any sort of advantage by revealing that information. They say he's on the injury report for the injury, but in the most broad sense, general, obviously to meet the guidelines. But man, take it easy in practice. All right. Stepping on Lamar Jackson, we don't have to do that anymore. Once is enough. Doing it multiple times over the course of a season, that to me is absolutely crazy. So Ravens, again, will have an opportunity against the Steelers here in week number 14. Coming up, though, we'll dive into what John Harbaugh had to say about the Ravens and possibly looking to extend some more guys after Mark Andrews got his deal. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the moment flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. And for this Ravens and Steelers game here, it's a big one. We know it has playoff implications to the max. And right now, the Ravens are 5.5-point home favorites. So maybe you like the Ravens as the home favorite. Maybe you like the Steelers as the road underdog. Either which way, you got to head over to FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Continuing on this bonus edition of Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Saturday. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their weekend and you've had a great start to it. Obviously, football tomorrow. We got the Ravens and the Steelers matching up in Week 14. And, of course, we'll have a full slate of game day content for you here on Locked On Ravens, starting off with the pregame edition of the show at 6 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Then, of course, we'll have Locked On Ravens watch along, reacting to every play live at 1 p.m. all the way through the game. Then we'll have the instant reaction show after that. Then the Locked On Ravens squad show after that with myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. So we have so much daily Ravens content and coverage for you. Obviously, the main show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also do these bonus episodes when there are headlines to talk about, and there are a lot of headlines to talk about during the season. So that's what we're talking about now. So thank you again for the support. Again, hit the like and subscribe button, video form and audio form. Same show, either which way you want to watch or listen. But all right, let's dive into what John Harbaugh had to say about the Ravens and potentially extending some more guys after Mark Andrews got his deal. Obviously, Andrews got a 3-year, $39.3 million deal with the Ravens on Wednesday. And, you know, it was certainly controversial within the fan base. I think the fan base very split down the middle on it. But John Harbaugh was asked about it on Friday because, you know, he hadn't had a chance to talk about it publicly before then. And he mentioned that, you know, Mark has done things the Raven way. And, you know, it's exactly how guys like Eric DeCosta, Isaac Newsom, Steve Bisciotti, that they all believe in that kind of stuff. But he said that there's other guys, and he said, quote, "We're trying to get other guys done too, for sure." And, you know, then went off and talked about Mark Andrews, everything you want in a football player as a coach, said he shows up every day, gives everything he got. So a lot of positives from Mark. But again, I'm hanging on to that. We're trying to get other guys done too, for sure. And again, there's no, like, even if Harbaugh didn't say this, I think everybody understands and knows that they're trying to sign other guys to extensions. You know, I don't think that this is like, this was some secretive thing and the Ravens are, wait, what? But I think it means something coming from John Harbaugh, and, you know, that's not a guarantee they're going to get anybody done. I mean, look, I think the Ravens clearly tried to extend Isaiah Likely. I don't know that for a fact. Like, no one's told me that, but I do think that, like, the writing is on the wall. We all see it. They tried to extend Isaiah Likely, in my opinion, and clearly something maybe didn't work out with the money, and they got Andrews for cheaper, like whatever it may be. But, you know, there are other players that the Ravens have to focus on now that Andrews is signed. And again, I think Lamar Jackson is a number one priority, has to be the number one priority with his $70+ million cap hit heading into next season. You can't operate and build a team with that. So the Ravens are essentially forced to go back to the table with Lamar and give him more money, which again, like, you know, with Josh Allen's deal, he's probably going to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. And, you know, I think he deserves that. You know, I think he deserves to get a little pay raise, especially after having the season he had last season. And again, it's been a weird year this year. I get it, but he was great at the beginning of the year. Injuries have kind of hampered him this year. But look, I think Lamar's worthy of it. I mean, you're not going to let Lamar walk out of the building. I mean, you just can't do it. So he's going to get a deal. It's going to be a big one. And it's going to give you cap relief for the near future. And then again, you'll have to worry about it in a couple more years after it's done. But you could realistically get like tens of millions of dollars in cap space by doing a Lamar extension. Like, legitimately, like, could free up with that $70 million hit that is going to schedule to be out this year, 10, 20, 30, could be 40. I don't know what that number could be, but it's going to be substantial there. And then that will give you the opportunity to maybe get a guy like Tyler Linderbaum under contract long-term, or Travis Jones, or throw a Chidobe Awuzie in there, Charlie Cole, or Jordan Stout's going to get paid a lot of money, punter standards, of course, but even still. And some of these guys that you're paying at essentially premium positions, you know, we've seen guys get paid at like defensive line, for example, right? What's Travis Jones and his deal going to actually, we can pull up right now some of those. So we'll do defensive line contracts, NFL, just to see. So again, like Chris Jones leads this year, 31 mil a year. I don't think Travis Jones is getting 31 mil a year. That deal's $158 million in total value. You know, you look at some of these guys here, like Zach Sealer in Miami has $63 million on a 3-year deal, so 21.1. Kenny Clark in Dallas has 21.3 million per season. Leonard Williams, 21.5. Then you start getting up to like Dexter Lawrence, Deron Payne, DeForest Buckner. Like, is that like a benchmark? I don't know. I mean, you also see like Ed Oliver is making 17 mil a season. Vita Vea is making 17.75. So I mean, I could see probably anywhere for Travis Jones if he continues his season that he's having and some of the dominance we've seen from him, anywhere from probably 17 to 21, 22. And again, you have to adjust for cap inflation and all that type stuff. So a deal that's worth, like $25 million, let's just say now, is going to look a lot better 3 years down the line if you sign him to a 4 or 5, whatever it is, your deal. Linderbaum, we can look up center contracts. Obviously, we know the Ravens declined his 5th-year option due to the fact that it would have reset the market by like $5 million or something if they had done it. So Linderbaum's situation right now is Creed Humphrey leads the league with $18 million per year. I think that 5th-year option for Linderbaum would have been like 23, if I'm remembering correctly, around there. So again, would have reset the market by multiple millions of dollars. Linderbaum, I know it's been a tough offensive line year. We're not going to sugarcoat that at all. But I do think he's had great moments this year. And, I think he's been far from the problem on that O-line. I think some people are nervous about him being undersized. I mean, I'm going to choose to look at the body of work he's put out over the course of his career and say that, look, he's deserving. And the Broncos center, Luke Wattenberg, just got a pretty decent contract extension at $12 million per season from the Broncos, I think, like a month ago, maybe less than a month ago. So Linderbaum probably, look, I wouldn't be shocked if he reset the market and the Ravens gave him like 19 a season. I would try if I'm the Ravens. So Drew Dalman in Chicago is 14 million per year. Cam Jurgens is 17. Maybe slotting Linderbaum in at like 15, 16. That would be a win for the Ravens, in my opinion. I don't know if that's what's going to end up happening, but I'm just saying, like, if they could do that, they'd be in a pretty good spot. But I mentioned guys like Awuzie and Stout and Kolar and those guys. I mean, those are contracts are going to be relatively cheaper than a Jones or a Linderbaum or even an Isaiah Likely, we know. And I'm not talking about Likely right now because I just don't think he's going to be re-signed, especially because I feel like the money situation, Baltimore just kind of looked at what he wanted and said, I mean, that's probably what I assume happened. Don't know that for a fact, but would make sense. That's why they brought back Andrews. But, I think that like Awuzie makes a lot of sense to bring back. Obviously Stout's having a career year. I think it'd be foolish to let him go. Kolar, I think it can be Andrews and Kolar versus Likely. That might have been the situation. I'm not sure. Then there are other guys as well, but I think that I would love to see one more extension done. Like if they could get Lamar done during the season and really set themselves up. Because remember, when Lamar was on the franchise tag and they were trying to work everything out, that money was all tied up. Like that cap hit was on their books, and it practically took away their free agency that season for the most part because they had Lamar on the books. Or what even was that for? It was like $40+ million or something. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a lot of money. And they essentially had to eat that hit until they signed him on night 1 of the draft, like a couple hours before. And then that money was freed up. So Lamar's deal, like he's under contract for next season at that number and at that cap hit. So unless they do a restructure or extend him, that $70 million is going to be on their books. $70+ million is going to be on the books. So Lamar being extended to me has to be the number one priority moving forward here, especially when I think his cap hit is going to open up so much spending money for them. And his number is going to obviously like they're not going to have their full spending potential without that getting done. So again, there are other guys I didn't talk about that like obviously should probably be a part of their plans, but just some guys off the top of my head that I was thinking about, like And we'll see what happens with Nanu Madubuike. I know Madubuike put some crystal ball emojis on his Instagram and it broke his social media silence. So I don't know what that means. But at the end of the day, I would love to see a Lamar extension done during the season, or at least one other guy done during the season. I think that would be really, because again, Andrew's getting done now. You're able to kind of work some things out, kind of understand, okay, he's going to be here. How can we build our team? And you're kind of done with that. So getting another guy on a contract before the year ends would be very, very big. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about that Ravens and Steelers game that is coming up tomorrow. So be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot coming your way here on Locked On Ravens. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you, rounding out our bonus edition of the show here on Saturday. Again, if you want some daily Ravens coverage, we have it here for you every single day in some way, shape, or form. Regular show Monday through Friday, and all the other stuff that we have here on Locked On Ravens. We cover this team, and we do it in a daily fashion. So be sure you follow me on social media, KailSharker34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. And also, if you have a friend or a family member who wants daily Ravens coverage or likes the Ravens, be sure to send them over here our way on Locked On Ravens. We're building up such awesome communities, almost 17,000 subscribers in video form. The audio community grows each and every single day. We have some exciting things coming as well on Monday. So be sure you check all that out. We'll have that announcement, but let's talk about the Ravens and the Steelers, because that announcement will be a lot sweeter if the Ravens beat the Steelers on Sunday, because we know the implications. Both teams tied atop the division right now at 6-6. It's been an underwhelming year for both teams, but I do feel eerily confident. And I say eerily because I'm kind of scared to be confident right now in this team, especially offensively. But man, Pittsburgh looked horrible against the Bills. Now, I probably shouldn't be talking because the Ravens looked horrible against the Bengals, but even still, like, I tend to always lean with scoring potential. And I feel like the Ravens offense, in fact, I know the Ravens offense has a much higher scoring potential outcome than the Steelers do. Like, the Steelers' good day is probably the Ravens' bad day in 95 out of 100 potential scenarios, where if the Ravens offense gets going, I don't think there is technically, right? There are ways, but it'd be very unlikely the Steelers offense, unless the Ravens defense just has a horrible game, could keep up with them. Now, the way the Steelers win this game, and I talked about this with Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers on our Crossover Thursday episode, and for those who don't know what that is, every single Thursday during the year, we have the opposing host from the Ravens team they're playing on the show, and we do a little crossover with each other, and we get to learn about the teams a little bit more that the Ravens are playing. And on that episode, Chris was talking about a lot of things relating to the Steelers, and we talked about keys to victory. And I said, just don't let the Steelers slop this game up, because that's how they've kind of snuck their way into some of these games and won them that maybe they shouldn't have. And, whether it was the Ravens beating themselves or the Steelers forcing the Ravens into mistakes, if the Ravens play a clean football game, they're going to win this game, in my opinion. I think they would have won the Bengals game if they had played a clean football game, the OPI penalty on Flowers, which again, I didn't like the call relative to what we see in the league every single Sunday, but it happened. But that's a Ravens inflicted mistake. Isaiah Likely fumbling at the goal line. That's a Ravens inflicted mistake. We saw some big penalties as well as that OPI, on top of it. Those are Ravens inflicted penalties. Obviously the turnovers, and you can't have those. The Ravens, you need to be able to play clean football. You need to be able to force turnovers as well on Aaron Rodgers, and don't let the Steelers run game get going. But this year for the Steelers, and we actually now know that Kyle Duggar, the safety they acquired from the Patriots, he popped up on the injury report later in the week with a hand injury, and he's not going to play in this game. That's a really big loss. Patrick Queen looks like he will be good to go in this one, but right now with Harmon being out and Duggar being out, those are two really big losses for a Pittsburgh defense that already is not playing all that great this season. Now, TJ Watt leads this team with 7 sacks. Nick Herbig is next with 6.5. Alex Highsmith, who's only played in 8 games this season, he's next with 5.5. And look, they have a good rotation of guys. They can come in and make something happen there. But, Chuck Clark's going to be the one that steps up for Kyle Duggar in this situation. They already lost to Sean Elliott. They've had to cut a couple of guys because they were so bad, like Juan Thornhill and Darius Slay. So, I mean, look, they're looking for answers and just some stats so that we can kind of understand where Pittsburgh is right now. They're not a great rushing team. They're 25th in the league there. They're 19th in the league in passing. Defensively, they're about middle of the pack in passing defense, 15th in the league in yards per attempt, and rushing it's 18th. So, again, they're a middling to poor unit. They are a bad third down defense. That's another key for me, right? And we'll talk about this more tomorrow on the game day episode. We'll dive into a little bit more on this, but, the Ravens, and just to compare, the Ravens' third down offense right now, they are 20th. So not like they're doing all this crazy stuff and being so great at it, but I think the Ravens' problem is red zone. In fact, I know the Ravens' problem is red zone. They are the third worst red zone team in the NFL. It's a far cry when they were number 1 in the league last season. It's been bad. They have not been able to convert on those opportunities. If you score touchdowns on this Pittsburgh team and you have a good red zone day and don't kick field goals, don't stall out, I'm feeling pretty good about the Ravens' chances because I think the Ravens can move the ball in this group. But again, if you're kicking field goals and keeping the Steelers in the game, that's when the Steelers can strike and when I feel like they're dangerous. So you have to be able to do that a lot better. You're converting under 50% right now in the red zone. That's a real problem. Utilize Derrick Henry down there. And that's the key. Utilize Derrick Henry in general, right? We all know the controversy that happened on Thursday night. Rasheen Ali outsnapped both Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell in this game and on Thursday night. And John Harbaugh saying a lot of it was game flow, and some of that is true, but I did think they had other opportunities to establish the run earlier in the second quarter with Henry, which they did not do. But regardless, this Pittsburgh run defense without Derrick Harmon, who again is not going to play, has been abysmal. Harmon has kind of helped almost hold that defense together in the run game, and he's not going to play in this game. And we saw James Cook go crazy against the Steelers last week, and they gave up the most yards Pittsburgh's defense did in Acrisure Stadium history. So you have to establish a run game. And again, the last couple times we've seen the Ravens play the Steelers at M&T Bank Stadium last year, obviously regular season and playoffs last season, Derrick Henry ran wild on that team. So that's the big game plan. Establish your run game, force them to stack the box, force those linebackers and safeties to take a step up on the play action, and then you can work the tight end game. Hopefully Mark Andrews can have a big game coming off his extension. Isaiah Likely contract year. Isaiah Likely hopefully can step up to the plate as well here. Charlie Kohler as well. You need a lot of guys to step up, and I'm excited for this game for sure. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. On the web, be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up, we'll have our game day episode tomorrow morning, followed by the watch along, the instant reaction, and the squad show over the course of the rest of the day. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.